Hi, everybody.
Hello,
Welcome. Yeah, I'm going to do a quick overview of why we're here tonight, and then I'm going to turn it right over to Araceli, our presenter this evening. So this workshop is presented by Dane Arts and DABL, and it is made possible free tonight with underwriting from Dane Arts, and we really appreciate the support of helping educate our creative community. And recently, DABL switched over from doing in-place market events to online education for artists. So we've been doing a variety. If you are interested in leading a workshop, email us at dablmarket@gmail.com, and we will be able to help connect you. So I have a few other things to touch base with at the very end, but I want to get right into the nitty-gritty of what we're talking about today. So we are talking about Kiva funding, and tonight we have with us leading our workshop, we have Araceli Esparza. Pronounce your last name for me again, because I just probably butchered it.
That's okay. It's Araceli Esparza.
Thank you. And Araceli is the founder and owner of Wisconsin Mara, an outreach marketing company that specializes in highlighting the rich diversity of Wisconsin. Her experience in the targeted outreach comes from over 10 years of working in fundraising and in program development with local government, colleges, and large nonprofit agencies. She is a connector for campaign needs and is a social media consultant and has coached many minority business owners and professionals through professional development and event planning, fundraising, entrepreneurship, and is just an amazing connector. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Araceli because she has so much experience with Kiva and has some top-notch things to learn. So Araceli.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Megan. I so appreciate it. I know that everybody's muted right now, but I would love it if you could put in the chat, like 1 or 2 words that describe you. What's your art? You could put Mark. I think you were saying you're a photographer and so forth, and just put that down in the chat. I would love to just know about the art that's going to help me to make this as tailored as possible. I know Yelena is a beautiful painter and acrylic painter, but is that what you want to, is that the program that you want to push forward? So if that's not the artist program, and you're like me, who I'm kind of like an artist of all trades, I do a little bit of everything. I started off in the arts as a painter and a drawer and illustrator, and then, oh, fabulous. Yes, and just put it in the comments. Keep on putting those in the comments. That's how I started in my artist journey as an illustrator in high school, and then moving on to poetry and writing, and now copywriting and fundraising and becoming a teaching artist. So as a teaching artist, I go into schools and we learn about Dia de los Muertos. As it came about when I was living in New Jersey with my daughter and my whole family, and so she was just coming into kindergarten, and she was celebrating Hanukkah and all of these other very rich holidays that typically in the Midwest we don't celebrate because we don't have like a high percentage of Jewish people in our area that have advocated for free days, for days off of school. And I said, well, that's really interesting. I want to talk a little bit about our culture. And so that just inspired me to talk more about Dia de los Muertos and introduce her into Day of the Dead and what that meant. And so we started doing that in the schools there in New Jersey. And then when I moved back here to Madison, a few years later, I started doing that as well. So Wisconsin Mujer came out of the need of providing counseling or consulting for various agencies, either nonprofits or for-profits and or in our community. So to let them know the diversity of our state, different cultures, and so forth. So Wisconsin Mujer, that's kind of what I do now, I've become a consultant and a fundraiser after many years of being an undercover artist, perhaps. And so throughout my years, I've done that. And I'm going to share with you this presentation that's going to walk us through everything that we're going to present today. And let me just get us in here quickly. I'm sharing my screen with you guys. So crowdfunding, Kiva, GoFundMe, Facebook, email, networking. I mean, all of those words used to make me like run away, right? All of those words just seem like a lot of words. But I promise you, once you have a template, once you've done it once, you can replicate that over and over again. Just like when you came up with your bios as artists, right? We have to have a certain type of byline as an artist. We gotta, talk about our history, how we came about, kind of what I just spoke up of a little bit of my own history coming into the arts. Very similar. Once we have that scaffolding, we can build off of that as well. And it can be replicated and utilized. And so I'm going to tell you kind of what I learned when I hustled this through and made, I think I actually, out of 1,000, I made $5,000 in less than 10 days. I was in Mexico. This is way before COVID, so this is like 2018. And I was in Mexico, and I fundraised for myself $5,000 over a period of 72 hours. So that's my success story of being, but it was also because I was very strategic about it. So you got to frame the problem, the goal, or the mission up for your audience. That's like really important, is to identify your who, your why, and your what, and how are you going to use those funds. People want to know that. And so prior to this meeting, I spoke with the folks over at Kiva Madison with WIBIC. So if you're not familiar with Wisconsin Women in Business Cooperative, and if you're a man, and perhaps even a woman, it doesn't matter. They will take you as well, and you can reach out a consult. And I'll put those notes, those will be in the notes, and I'll put them also in the chat box for you as well, so that you can connect with the leading Kiva liaison, Michelle, after this program as well. But I think what's really important about being in this workshop is that it's going to help you hone in already. So when you talk to Kiva and you're already setting everything up, it's going to go so much faster, because you'll know what I didn't know, right? And that's always important to know beforehand, to prepare ourselves. And a little bit, I kind of knew what I wanted to do as far as my goal, my mission, and my audience. And I was specific to the problem, and I connected it with my audience. And the way I did that was just taking Wisconsin Mujer, and it was about the mission is still highlighting and breaking the isolation of Latina women in the Midwest through what we said, engagement events. It could be social media events, it could be art events, it could be interviews. And I made it broad enough that it was still specific, if that makes sense, so that you can still utilize that monies to go to the promotion of and the development of that program without naming it. So when I did speak to Kiva this week, that was kind of like the pie. They said that's really the heart of it, is that we want to make sure that you show and illustrate how you are going to solve that problem. So when I talk about diversity, I'm solving the problem that Wisconsin is oftentimes looked at as a place of not having diversity, of not having highlighted people either being Latinas or they're otherwise. And so how is that different? How is that different when the problem is solved by you? So whatever the problem is, you got to distinguish yourself how you do it differently. So there are other, you got to look at your competitors, right? People that might have the same, if you're a painter, might be other painters. How is your paintings, or how is the work that you're doing around painting different than other folks? And so once we identify those things, I think that's good too. Oh, okay, great. Thank you for putting that website on there, Megan, in the chat. Okay, so we have people who are an impressionist, oil and pastel artists. Yes, 30% of WIBIC clients are men, exactly. So let's not be afraid of that, exactly. Jewelry artist, photographer, graphic designer. I'm a 3D artist, said Tim, working primarily with metal and some pieces that integrate stone, crystals, and minerals to the mix. Awesome. Oh, Angelica, welcome. Mixed media artist, she says. And Mark Weller, I'm full-time time stacking photographer. So those are all, and then Juliet said she's a jewelry artist and photographer and graphic designer. I mean, these are all areas that Kiva wants to fund projects for you. The trick is finding where is that medium? Where is the medium of cost to debt that you want to take on, and how far do you want to pull that string? And the reason I say it that way is because it's like taking that season, to actually say you're going to do this work for this work that's going to be in flourishing next season, perhaps. And you'll see what I mean as we go through this talk. the pieces that you'll need either prior or during the application process. And so this is why I was trying to say, like, this, you're preparing in this season for next seasons. And so having your personal statement, that's why I was saying that everybody here in this talk show already has a step up. You already have bios, probably. You all have already done something to identify yourselves as an artist. You just did it right now, even in the chat. You gave me a couple of words to describe what you do. All we're asking is not a bio statement. This is a conversation about your strengths. So as an artist, we all love talking about our strengths in our life, right? So talk it out, write about it, free write a little bit about that. Your ask statement is, what is your business? Who do you serve? What problem do you solve? How will this money help? So that's really the core that we're getting to, is what is that ask? So why don't we take a little hot moment here to, in the chat, if you you had to pick a project, maybe you didn't even come with something here today. I always want to work from, like, I just came because I'm interested in some more money, that's great. Make up something that you want to ask right now, what it would be to do what you're, like, a project that you've always wanted to do but never had the extra funds to do, or never had the extra money or supplies or time in your life to do. What would that be? Is it teaching for youth? Is it outdoor painting? Is it traveling to Italy and, you're with the Mona Lisa, algo así, whatever that is, put that in the chat for us. Let's just take a little moment here. And while we're writing that, just, again, be as free as you and thoughtful of that. I'll look for that in the chat while we're, oh, sorry, I kind of went away. I went somewhere different on this. So the next third thing, while you guys are writing, the next third thing to think about are headshots. So sorry, I went ahead and back. Our headshots and the 45-second video. Now, Kiva wanted to tell you guys not to do this, like, you didn't have to, but I know that we are overachievers from Wisconsin, and I know that we could get a 45-second video talking about our art. And the headshot, let's talk about invest in a professional photo headshot with good lighting and with your artwork. So Velenia, without you knowing, you were already doing the great thing. And Mark too, you had his art right behind him. That's exactly the Photoshop they want to do. They want you with your art, whatever that is. And I wanted to show you guys here. I'm gonna stop my share real quick so that I can get back and show you guys on this how my Kiva loan looked as well. So while you're writing, I'm gonna be over here looking at my Kiva loan so that way you guys can see how it looks like from the outside. So keep on filling in what your dream project would like to be, what you would do if you had, I don't know, $1,000, $5,000. Right now, Kiva has a really awesome thing going on where they have suspended the repays for 6 months. So you're already ahead of me in a lot of ways. Like, I had to start paying within 30 days, and I ended up paying it off within 2 months. And so that's kind of like anything else. That is what's going to make Kiva work for you, is that you will set it up to repay right away, and you're going to have another crowdfunder to help you do that. And that's how you link the Kiva with the GoFundMe. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but at the very least, if you want to just do Kiva, just knowing that you have to lend responsibly in that way, and thinking of your own, how you got to think about how much you can spend and want to repay back. Because the nice thing is that they are allowing 6 months from the time they disperse it for you to start back, and there's no penalties for prepay, for paying it back. Maybe you start paying back within 3 months, so there's no penalties for that as well. Let's look back at what you guys had here in the chat. Tim says he would love to have a large public installation. Mark says we'd love to travel to south of France to photograph Van Gogh locations. That sounds very historical as well. Julie says, setting up a workplace in my home studio to teach jewelry and working with metal. I'm glad you mentioned that, Julie, because that is exactly something that Kiva sees artists go for. And they said they were very specific on that. So they kind of already knew you were coming at them, Julie. They already knew that there was going to be somebody that wanted to have that. And what they're saying is that it's possible, but we got to make sure it's worded a certain way so that it's not looked as rent, if that makes sense. And we'll revisit that as well. Visiting communities that make traditional textiles in Oaxaca. Oh, that's so beautiful. And taking a workshop there. Oh, yeah. I can totally see a lot of great value in that as well. Writing a book to help businesses and other economic development theories, said Megan. Okay, look at you, Megan. She's like, I want action on this as well. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm just looking at my Borrow dashboard. I'm going to look at my portfolio here. I'm going to try to share that with you guys. Give me 1 second. I'm jumping around here, all these different screens. All right, there we go. Now, hopefully you'll see mine. Oh, let me pull this down here. Got sun in my eyes. All right, so yay, it says Araceli was repaid. Congratulations. I wanted to show you this back end because one is that I was lended by 31 lenders, right? Oh my, I know, 31 people came up with $1,000. That was good. It was really good because it's small amounts that I could pay back right away. You see me here, it's all professional. You see somebody learning something in the background because that's what I do. I'm doing classes, facilitating, teaching. And so I can apply right away again. So once you've already fulfilled one, I mean, they want me to, I says, I'm okay, but they want us to apply again right away. So once you go with one setup with them, you can do that as well. Let me look at portfolios, my loan page, there it goes. This is kind of the back end too. See full borrower profile. So after the fact, so here's my video, just for kicks and giggles. You want to watch it? Do I get a thumbs up? Kicks and giggles? Okay. Hi, my name is Araceli Esparza. I am the founder and executive director of Wisconsin Head. And we are asking you today to contribute to our Kiva loan that will help expand our businesses to a digital space where we'll be able to help women tap into their creativity through creative writing workshops, podcasts, and webinars. Thank you again for your contribution. So yes, a year later, I'm still doing that. In fact, this weekend, I'm doing another event for women of color. I'm partnering, we were just talking about that earlier. I'm partnering with the library to do that event. And so we can, as a curator, I connect people and locations and so forth. So this loan helped me hire minority and marginalized website makers, videographers, and together we came to create podcasts, short videos that reflect how self-help practices can empower you and at the same time learn new tools for self-love. And that is kind of the mission of what Wisconsin Mohead does, is we highlight that. But I was it came from like, I highlight the diversity of Wisconsin to I became very much more focused. I think this response is more focused to the problem, and I got more specific. And then it gets the story. So the story part is 200 words. The longer it is from what she told me, it was better. So I would say 200 words. So a lot of people only stick to like one paragraph. I would take it a little further. You know, as a creative, you're a creative individual. I didn't believe I was enough. You know, I talked a little bit of who I was here, about my history. I discovered that there was a Midwest point of view with a Mexican flavor for homegrown outreach marketing. And so I talked a lot about my journey and how I'm unique to other marketers and what distinguishes me for that. And here I would also, for those of us who have had exhibits, I didn't, but for those of us who had exhibits and your art is visual, for like Mark and I'm forgetting it, and Yelena for your arts, and then Angelica for your arts that are visual, like, and Julie, here, talk about that. I've sold this much. I have been working for this month. This is who I was mentored by. This is, my school studies, where I went and traveled, especially Mark, for you and Angelica, who are wanting to travel places. Talk to us already here in this section about those travels. So as you can see, it's very generous. I had about 4 or 5. And this loan is special it helps a female entrepreneur grow her business and empower others. So I just talked exactly about why it was special. I totally leaned on that I was a female entrepreneur, because Kiva is very much about that. And so more about the loan. Here is the business description. Now here's where I didn't have to talk too much about the business up here. Now we're really talking about what kind of businesses I do. So this would be definitely about the yield of like what your project is going to do. So I want to just pick a little bit on Julie, because Julie was saying about how she wants to make one part of her house into a studio. Now Julie, so yes, we got to talk to Kiva about that, but also talking about it, that it's, how can we underwrite the rent money for that is about renovating the site, and how are you making it not about your house, but then inviting other people, like, is it the studio? We want to talk about the outreach of that. I'm going to impact this many people because this many people are going to be able to utilize my studio. Now with COVID, we got to think ahead, because now people are not maybe going to come into the studio. It's virtual. People are loving that right now. So lean on that. Lean on the fact that you are creating a studio, so that could be more virtual. And so I had also leaned on very similar of like, for cameras and so forth, and like maybe subscriptions. So some of my other asks lately have been more about that, in acknowledging COVID. So at this point, I would definitely acknowledge that too, there. And that would almost make it, why is this loan special, right? Because I'm helping art become accessible virtually now. The jewelry making, I mean, I would say talk about bread making too, maybe, because those are both very hot topics right now, and hobby making is going to be really big right now for reduction of stress, for having to do so many things online. There's education. So this is like, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, is right here. What is the purpose of this? The Kiva loan will allow me to build my social media presence and pay for video and podcasting studio time, advertising, and attract customers despite the construction. Despite the construction, I plan to use the loan in the following ways. And so I kind of got really, I got really specific here. Like, but it wasn't until the end of exactly what I was going to do. And so then we talked about how long I'd been in operation, your website. You can follow us on any of these links, right? And then here were my lenders. So what she does, and then comments and updates. So once you get logged in here, you're set up with your account, okay? You can then have a bunch of comments. So here's where I updated people. You can even tell when I started. Some people were like, I believe in you, amiga, and then January 12th, I was fully funded. So I started on the 9th. By the 12th, in 3 days, when I tell you 72 hours, that was fun to go with. And although that might seem like a small win, at the same time, I had all of these emails now. I had all of these people that I had emailed prior to. So Kiva gave me, and let me stop the share now, or actually move on to another, back to the slideshow. Kiva gave me the wording. Kiva gives you the wording to do the ask, and they give you an email template. So when you're thinking about this already, even now, start germinating a couple of names. Get your top 5, get your top 20, and then I would even say get your top 40. And the reason why is that when it was already fully funded, because Kiva has their own strong following, and this is what Kiva was telling me, that record numbers now are being funded, and so they're being funded quickly, more quickly than in my generation, perhaps in 2019. Now in 2020, because of COVID, people are looking for the story to help folks, to help art. If you can talk about how your art is gonna, like we were talking about jewelry making and hobby making and so forth, if you can make that more of a universal need, that you are a solution of a universal need impacted by COVID, even all the better. So here's like the email that I had I had written up with Kiva. Some of this was of their, their wordage, and they're going to have, and they ask you to start lending as little as. So when I sent it out to my email folks, by the time they were responding in 3 days, it was already full, which is why I was like, oh my gosh. I started on day 1 with 25 emails. Day 3, I had an update, super enthusiasm. And then day 7, I started thinking, how much more do you have to raise to reach your own goal? So Kiva was half of my goal, which was, my goal was 5,000. And so how did I keep on thinking about that? How could I keep on? I knew I could pay back 1,000. So then I rolled over the video, all the text, all the actions, the pictures. I rolled that over to GoFundMe. And GoFundMe is, it's free money. So the synergy used the momentum. So Kiva for me was kind of like a schooling and a learning to brand my own self and start using email solicitation and email marketing for crowdfunding. So really having the mission, the action, and the artist is the revenue model for your Kiva loan and to jumpstart your GoFundMe page. You email folks and explain that list. Just that this is your mission, your action, and you're the artist. Post and get quotes from your funders. So the quote that I used, that Kiva had generated, I copied and pasted it, and I put it into the GoFundMe. And I use the same strategy in GoFundMe. I kept on putting updates, and I would let people know, hey, we're at 50% of our goal. So the GoFundMe was $3,000. And then I had a private sponsor come in at that point. So crowdfunding can be as small as $500 is what Kiva had told me. And it can yield, you press it at new audiences, and it can be doubled. So here is Michelle's information as well. So she's up, she's available for your consults and any other questions that you might have for this. For Kiva in specific. Now, does anybody have questions about GoFundMe? Because I'm going to jump into that. And if you have some ideas, if you can put them in the chat, that would be great as I switch over to that platform.
There's not a question in the chat box right now. This is Megan, and I'm working on getting my video restarted, but it doesn't want to come back on. Oh, there we are. So it sounds like you're suggesting that it's a beneficial model to use Kiva as part of a whole overall fundraising campaign.
Yes.
Other practices as well?
Yes.
That's an interesting way to sort of double your money in a way.
It is. It should be part of a larger campaign. Absolutely. With $1,000, I would have never been able to do what they were asking for, but I knew I could pay it back, right? I knew I could pay it back eventually, but because I needed the seed money to start the rest. And so what ended up happening was I used the momentum so I can screen share my GoFundMe. I used the momentum to raise another $400 on GoFundMe, and then I had some private sponsors come in as well because they started noticing that I was doing all these emails and so forth, and they're like, okay, leave me alone. I'm just gonna give you $1,000 and be done with it. So we were privately then sponsored throughout. But the goal was 5, and I think at the end of the day, it ended up yielding me probably more so because of just the audience expansion. People started understanding really what Wisconsin Mujer was doing. And my name is, Mujer is a name for Spanish and for women. So it's you have to get to know the brand almost, right? Because I already had the challenge of language there too. And so it was impactful to use that momentum to establish myself too in the community as an agent of art and curation and so forth. So I'm going to show you guys the back end here. Ooh, I'm showing all kinds of secrets. So the this is how it was raised, and you can see like it was within a short amount of time. I utilized some other headshot pictures that I utilized this beautiful woman, Lizia Aparicio, who is of Mexican descent as well. I utilized the same kind of language already. I had pictures up here of now other Latinos. So I went into another, just changed it just so, okay? So I had other pictures I downloaded too at the time. And so in the back end, again, created January 4th. So you see the timeline, they were both happening pretty much at the same time. So I was utilizing the momentum of one to feed the other, to feed the other. So it became very circular. And the reason why that worked was because Kiva has such a response rate. So the people that you were emailing to fund, man, only like maybe 3 or 4 are going to do that. They have their own network of over hundreds and hundreds of folks that you won't know who those folks are, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's been deactivated because I got some other special funding for that, and we can see all of those folks there and their donation levels. So it kept on going. And then it was, you know, you can email these people too. You can email them in the back end. It doesn't show me that now, but you can do updates and so forth and visit our podcast site. So one thing is important too is for you to have that podcast site or whatever website that you want to point to regarding your project. It's really important for you to have the site, a little bit, something for them to point to.
Araceli, about how long do you spend during that campaign? Did you spend like leading up to it and then managing it as it was going? What's like that kind of time commitment?
Ooh, probably 6, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. I mean, it was only $5,000, and by the time I reached like 3,500, I had a couple major sponsors come through. So that was nice. Individual sponsors started coming through as well. Yeah, I think what was key for me is like getting the language down, right? Getting the ask down. And Kiva was so nice is talking to people like Michelle and people like myself. You know, we can definitely help you hone in on that. That's why I kind of was like throughout. And let me see if we have any more new chats if on there, you know, just honing in on that. And that's why I was having everybody just like write out what it is that you want to do, and then how can we tweak that a little bit. One thing it won't support are things like rent, which is why we were talking about the workspace, and that's a common ask for artists. So I'm glad that somebody here came up with that one. That's something that Michelle and I talked about too. But yeah, I would definitely say, and for traveling and so forth too, you just got to be creative about how you're engaging people. Is it through, you know, and showing people where they can go to see your vlog? Maybe it's a YouTube channel. Maybe all you're doing is taking little videos of yourself, you know, setting up with the textiles, say in Oaxaca. So I would start sampling that. So you want to start maybe that plotting of layering, you know, letting people kind of know what it is that you're doing. You might want to start that like even 6 months ahead. So for Wisconsin Mohead, we already had our website. We already had a press release. I had access to a professional photographer and so forth. So I had already been doing what I said I've been doing. I'd already been doing it for like 6 months prior, just self-sufficient, just self funding myself. So this was kind of another way of helping to complete the project. And we have now completed 12 episodes of Midwest Mujeres, and we're completing another 5 with the city and county of Latino artists here in Dane County. Yeah, so it's grown, and it keeps on growing, and so it's growing into other avenues as well. But yeah, certainly if it's like for these larger projects for Oaxaca and going to south of France and so forth, I think, or a large public art installation, you definitely want to start capturing your email list now. I would start now, and then thinking out, you know, 6 months ahead of time of just layering a little bit, but the full part of it is gonna be really fast. It's gonna be like really, really fast, 4 weeks just straight. you know, of getting the materials, getting everything uploaded to the websites. The nice thing, Kiva has its own website. So really, if you don't have a website, that's okay. But it should be something, like it should be either, then I would stress doing the video. Then I would definitely want to stress doing the video if you didn't have a website just yet. But where can people have some sort of testimony of your work and of your products? So that could be your profile, it could be a landing page, it could be your social media page. All those things are valid as well. I just happen to have a website. And I hate to say that websites are that necessity in this crowdfunding, because I'm very cognizant that websites and artists do not match all the time. I'm very aware of that. So that's why I rely on things like Kiva and GoFundMe, because they are their own website landing page. So if need be, you can just show people like, hey, I was in this newspaper article a couple years ago. Look at this, you know, or, you know, just to kind of give yourself credibility there. You just want to put those type of links. That's why I use my website link. But certainly if I didn't have that, then I would maybe point to an article, something where it testified a little bit of the work I was doing. And the nice thing is that if you need an article, you know, write up a press release for yourself as an artist. That could be very helpful to announce that you're doing some of this work already. Like when I think about photographing Van Gogh in south of France, what makes Mark, not to pick on you, Mark, but what makes Mark an expert in this, right? What history has he had already in that area? And so that just, you know, wanting to show that. And whatever long that takes, however long that could take, it could be 6 months, but certainly the setup and the uptake could be as little as 4 weeks.
That's very helpful. I have two questions that came in on the direct to me side. When reaching out to Kiva and to Michelle specifically as the Kiva support staff for Kiva Madison, one thing to note is that Madison is a Kiva city. So that does give the city of Madison a direct contact, which is a little different than other communities that you might be reaching out to the larger Kiva collective. But Madison does have a dedicated staff member to support people while they're going through their Kiva asks and then post ask into the repayment side of things. Do you suggest, or does Michelle prefer to have an email or a phone call when people are reaching out to for the first time?
Either one. I spoke to her on the phone, so she's really personable as well. And so, yes, either one.
Okay. So whatever you're more comfortable with, you can reach out.
Exactly. Yeah, she'll return your phone call. Yes, excellent. Yes, let her know. She knows about this. Actually, and Generator 8 advertised us last night in their crowdfunding for businesses last night. So they were talking, so everyone's talking about this. I mean, crowdfunding is big right now, folks. And that's another resource to talk to if you need more guidance as far as crowdfunding. If you're looking for major investors, that might be a place to go to. Generators over there on the Spark building. And there's also another kind of like a GoFundMe, it's another Kiva. It's called I Fund Women. And that's specifically only for women. And so that would be another resource as well that you can explore as far as like crowdfunding platforms. And then let's not forget Kickstarter, right? And the only reason I didn't talk about Kickstarter is because it's very competitive. And I think we all want things that, as artists, that are a little bit easy, right? We're already competitive enough in our arts and in what we do. So this is the path of least resistance. And what's so nice is that Kiva already has such a strong following that you saw how many people donated very small amounts. 30 some people came up with $1,000 when I had other people, one person come up with $1,000. So there's like this huge, gap of potential donors that you could be attracting. With one, you can track 30, but now it's 30 followers who knew that they did something good, and you have that rapport with the people that actually went through the email process. But if they didn't, you already have a rapport, and you have a website that they can look at your art and stay updated if need be. But she says that they're being funded really quickly, so the time is now. And I know that that's kind of a reason why I wanted to come on and talk about this. Because of like what's going on with COVID and so forth, and like that as artists we have to, it's harder for us to, especially if we're selling wares, you know, like you were saying, Tim, like you're a 3D artist. When I think of those type of installations, they're very big, I would assume. And so how do we talk about those type of things, and how do you make that engaging in a loan process, like for a project? And that's where I think sometimes we're gonna, it's gonna be important to talk to people like myself, Michelle, or Megan, to help us like hone in on those ideas.
Yeah, so it's almost like when you have now 30 backers through Kiva, you now have 30 new potential customers, as opposed to one donor of 1,000, you only have potentially one new customer. You know, so using crowdfunding as a way to sort of increase your customer base or your potential customer base. I have another question that came in. When you're preparing this, I'm just going to read the question before I start, like, because it's a couple different pieces. When you're putting together the project and working with Michelle or other, well, I guess Michelle for Kiva, does she help you craft your ask and really what you're asking for? Or is that something that you should be prepared to come in and say, I know I want to take a trip to France on, you know, January 2021, and I have a class that I'm taking? Or if you don't quite know what you're asking and how to ask for it, is that something that they can help you guide through and hone down your what you're actually trying to go for?
They, for me, they didn't that, I mean, a little bit. It really depends on what you're in the description. It's really going to depend in the description here. Yeah, that's a good question. I think she would help to a certain extent. And when I did ask her about that, she's like, I think people need to know a little bit of like how it's, what problem it's solving. She's like, if you can come up with that part, the rest she can really help work with that. But if you can think about what problem you're solving, or what potential problem you're solving, or how are you increasing, when I think about art, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to engagement of the community right now and virtual. That seems like a solution of all that. Like, I want to visit Oaxaca, but I can't. But Angelica's going to take me there. I'm like, of course, I would love that. I would love that. And so how do we make that a possibility? And I don't think there's a limitation. We just have to think about those logistics and add those in. So if, say, for Angelica, she needs a new camera, or she needs to hire somebody that's like a videographer, that would, we need to think about that now. Now, how do we adapt that to the project itself? Yeah.
What are the terms of repayment?
Yeah, that's what
an interest rate.
Really, no. If you do it underneath a year of paying back, not really. No, it's very small. It's very small, but you should be planning to, I mean, and now this is awesome. 6 months. You guys are like literally the first to hear it. I just want you to know. You had to come to the class. I could have said it earlier, but it happened ever since COVID started. So I think they started in April. They're giving you a 6-month grace period for repay, which I think allows us to borrow more money. To be honest, then you're going to borrow maybe 5. If I were to do this now, I think I might want to go for 5, because I would know that this is seed money. Almost treat this as, now, you know, I have to think about this in longevity terms, but almost think of this as seed money for the other money that you're going to gather. So if this project is really 10,000, then I'm going to just focus with 5. So it's almost like take whatever amount you think you need, split it in half, use Kiva for that, and use the other stuff. I mean, so through Kiva, you have now a YouTube video that you didn't know before. Through Kiva, you have like all this language. You know, you have headshots now. You have copies of that. That's all your property still. So then you could just put that over to GoFundMe, or just start asking your email asks, you know, or on your websites, or through social media. And through social media, you're going to get people that, oh my gosh, that's what happened to me. I was funded in 3 days. So I kept on having people wanting to fund me saying, I can't fund you because it's closed. And they says, oh, here's this other link. You can fund me over here. So that's how that worked.
I know that I have been a funder. I have donated, or I've given money. I've backed a business in Madison as a grantor, a trustee, maybe not a trustee, but a grantor. And one of the things that they've done during their payback period is given occasional updates, because they weren't able to pay back immediately the full, like, the full amount right away. And they were doing other sorts of engagement and giving us updates on what they were doing. Is that something that you had to do when you were paying back your loan?
I did, and that's where it said on, that's why I said on there, this loan is special, because, so I did, yes. And I paid it back on chunks because I was already getting funded elsewhere. So I was able to utilize the revenue from the projects back to that, back to the loan. So in a lot of ways, this is seed money. I think of this as seed money, and like if you think about it as somebody just lending you half of your project, you coming up with the rest. And then once your project's going, is thinking about how am I monetizing the repay for that loan. And so that's where you need to really think about what are you comfortable with? What kind of debt are you comfortable with carrying? But also understanding like that happened in 2018, I think it was. I mean, it's 2020 now, 2 years later, I'm still doing the same work. So it did help sustain the projects. It helps sustain my business, and it's helped me expand it now. So we're doing larger events. I'm doing more sold out events, and we're pivoting to online events as well. And so it kept on rolling. I think that's going to be the question of at the end result, it's you at the end of the day that has to pay it back, how much you're willing to carry that debt for. Yeah.
So it is, you know, a 0% interest loan with a 6-month grace period to repay is sort of what the moral of the story is with Kiva right now, and how it can be a part of an overall funding platform. Does that sound about like a good Kiva in a nutshell?
Yes, that is the Kiva in the nutshell. Absolutely, yes, Megan. That is the Kiva in the nutshell. And just to remembering funding and friends. You identify the why and then frame the problem, the goal, or the mission for your audience, and be specific about the problem that you connected to your audience. I think once you find those elements, I think the money is going to come, and you're going to definitely have the tools to continue to outreach, and it will just be like you're crowdfunding the whole time. It's like you just don't stop crowdfunding, right? I'm still crowdfunding now, but now it's for other projects. I'm still crowdfunding, but for other projects that are very specific projects. So we utilize the same list and the same language. So that's been nice too.
That's awesome. Wow, this is really great information, and such an important opportunity for people to take advantage of right now, especially since other revenue streams are a little non-traditional, or they're gone away, or they're on pause, or they're pivoting, whatever the case may be. If anybody else has any other questions, we got about 4 minutes left. I want to be mindful of all of our time. And see if anybody can get out and catch the sunset before the end of the day. Pop those in the comment box right now. But I'm going to take just one moment to give a little update on a couple of things that we have coming up. We're so grateful, Araceli, for all of your information today. And I'm guessing she would be available if you have other questions or anything after the fact. Araceli, would they be able to reach out to you with questions?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. Sarah's dropping some things down there in the chat box. We have our feedback form. So we always love feedback. It helps us grow and change and be responsive to what you guys are looking for. We will pop this up and have it recorded afterwards. So if you want to watch it again or take a peek at the slides, we'll be able to share those. As a reminder, Dane Arts still has the Dane grants available. So you can check out the Dane Arts website for more information about those Dane grants, and hopefully apply if you haven't. And if you have and are still waiting for a response, it'll be coming soon. So hang tight, or you can email danearts@countyofdane.com with any questions you have about that. Make sure you also, while you're on there, hop on and fill out, sign up for the Dane Arts newsletter. You're going to keep up to date with all different arts related things with the county, whether it's funding, new opportunities, workshops, the calendars, the posters. There's lots of good opportunities there. I do want to announce that our next workshop is on the 15th from 7 to 8 p.m. and it's going to be with Walter Jankowski. The topic is riding the wave of disruption, networking and closing the deal in a virtual world. So you'll want to jump into that. We're going to be talking about, he's going to be covering how coronavirus has disrupted pretty much any and every industry. It's really thrown us all for a loop. And in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of experience with disruptors and the art world is no different. So we're going to be talking about how to effectively find, build, and maintain your network, which you can share your Kiva funding through once you build that network and identify it. Best practices in making sales and closing the deal to your network, and the do's and don'ts of networking.
See, I told you guys, I told you, it's like you gotta, nothing until there's a vaccine, really. Like, it's gonna be, but that being said, yes, it has to be framed that way. I'm so glad. This is such a great precursor for his event. That's so good, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a really, you have some ideas of some ways that you can put that into practice and then continue to hone your skills, learn from Walter. He's an expert in the field and an amazing networker and collaborator and connector. So we'll keep growing our networks here. Make sure if you have in the next minute, want to drop anything about your business down here that we can share with the group, go ahead and drop your social network handles, emails, websites. But what you put in there, we will share with the group, so keep that in mind. We are grateful for Dane Arts and Mark, who's on our call today, for all that they are doing for the county when it comes to their art and culture and the creative economy. There's a lot of amazing work going on with Dane Arts, and we are grateful for all of it. Without them, we would not be here this evening. So thank you, Mark and Dane Arts, for everything that you do. With that, it is now 8 o'clock, so I am going to say adieu and thank you all for your time, your talents, and what you bring to our community. We greatly appreciate it, and we will hopefully see you at our next workshop. Thanks, everyone.